Most players think the Hedgehog is about patience. They're wrong. It's about controlling the key entry points before the streets ever open. Today, we're going to write another page of the Syndicate Codex. This is another clash between National Master Nelson and Grand Master Gabu. This time, however, the underdog managed to put the Grand Master in a vice grip, trapping him in a hedgehog setup that neither player truly understood. After the Syndicate castled long, Black erected another spike with c6. A heavy-handed move, and frankly, I didn't like it. It felt like choking your own man. The hitman on c8 was already struggling for air, and that pawn just sealed his fate. My call and the engine's preference was b6. While it's objectively the sharpest move, I would have folded under the pressure of the follow-ups without the concepts I'll share with you right now. If the rival dares to push d5, there is a simple yet effective trick we can activate. You can deploy this weapon whenever you are behind in development, initiating a queen exchange. Naturally, we end up with a worse mob structure, but with the lethal hitman duo intact. If the opponent is sharp and relocates Molly to e3, there is a fancy strategic maneuver we can unleash, using our greatest asset as a blockader on d5. It is usually unwise to use our predator below her station, but in this case, she even ties her rival down to defend the Don Colt on e4. The natural counter-strike with Don Colt c3 is a top choice, but then Molly f5 holds the position firm. You'll soon see why we choose that specific district for her. Nelson played brick e1. My gut told me to push c4, but the real clinical hit was Godfather b1. A dirty, quiet slide. It locks down the a2 flank and shields the Godfather from those checks creeping in from the other direction. It looks like a dead lane, but if White's plan slips under our radar, the g4-g5 storm will hammer the f6 weak spot and tear that diagonal wide open. The Grandmaster responded with hitman d7. My instinct screamed for Molly a5, but Blunderbox liked Molly c7. I experimented with h5 to dismantle their hammering plan, but to my surprise, that entire strategy was dumped into the abyss the moment their brick took that detour to e1. Therefore, it is crystal clear. The hammering plan required the brick on h1 as a heavy hitter, ready for a rapid activation after the recapture. Without the brick in position to reinforce the assault, the entire maneuver loses its punch. But why is Molly c7 the superior choice? The answer is buried deep in the Hedgehog setup and the vulnerabilities of the f6 district. White has 3 specific vantage points that oversee 2 of our weaknesses simultaneously: g3, f4, and h6. From there, White can easily pivot, using f4 to pressure f6, while threatening a hostile takeover of our c7 outpost. From g3, Molly can leap into both entry points. From h6, she gun points f6 and controls the g7 entry point. By positioning Molly on c7, she oversees this entire lane, effectively neutralizing 2 of those 3 vantage points. Go and test your new knowledge. What is the most lethal play for White here? Which move allows Molly to overwatch 2 of the 3 vantage points? The solutions are d2 and e3, but which one restricts the opponent better? Molly D2 delivers a bigger snap, as it effectively dismantles Black's ability to gain tempo with those pesky Molly A5 probes. After these insights, my C4 push and Nelson's choice of Dawn Colt C5 were nothing short of an erotic massage for the rival family. Next, the Grandmaster played Molly A5, a strong move indeed, but Blunderbox and I preferred Molly C7. I admit, I didn't see the full scope of that move at the time, or more precisely, I didn't understand its power at all. White's response was simple and clinical. Molly B3 is protecting their asset while simultaneously optimizing their offensive reach. Remember, in this business, you have to be double efficient to be the bigger dog. B6 felt like the obvious route for Black, but as White, I was hesitant to send my Dawn Colt into the enemy's base just to slay that good-for-nothing hitman. Sure, the Godfather gets exposed, but without open streets, exploiting that weakness isn't as simple as it looks. After B6, our Molly isn't terrorizing anything. Thus, we need to free her from babysitting A2. This is why Godfather B1 and A3 are top-tier choices, but Nelson's and my pick, C4, is just as lethal. The forces were almost balanced, but Gabu claimed he had no idea how to hold the line. He clearly underestimated the resilience of the Hedgehog and cracked under the pressure, blundering with Molly F5. The clinical approach would have been simple. Deploy the brick duo onto the streets, where the real action is brewing. That maneuver allows you to tuck the Godfather into safety. With Molly F5 strutting across the board, the breakthrough plan became even more tempting. But White can't afford a reckless shootout in the center. Otherwise, we gain tempo with the brick, forcing a queen exchange and healing our mob structure. I hope you spotted that Chipface didn't follow the creed of the bricks this time. Why did he do that? It was because of the Godfather's safety. And that's the only currency that matters when a central breakthrough is just around the corner. Therefore, the Godfather has to retreat. But if he does that while the other brick is already developed, his twin on the H-file has an even harder time getting into the action, as now the Godfather is standing directly in his way. I was pleased Nelson opted for D5. It is the best move, but the path remains in the shadows. After the recapture, a lane opened up for pursuing checks. However, if you look at the evaluation bar, there's a massive gap in the outcome, depending on where that check originates. I spent hours dissecting the wreckage to figure out why Molly A4 is the superior. But before I spill my secrets, I want to show you a position that demands godlike awareness to tighten the screws. All right, consider your options. The solution is the puny, unassuming G3, the D5 push, the chase with Dawn Colt, the pursuing checks from Molly, the impatient bricks. All of it pumps the adrenaline through your veins as you hunt down the Godfather. But right in the heat of the chase, you have to catch a glimpse in the rear-view mirror. Molly can be terminated with a sharp hairpin turn. Now, back to my insight. Molly A4 is better than B5 because it unlocks more tactical strikes, like those nasty discovered attacks with in-between checks from Dawn Colt, or hitting D5 with tempo should Black chose the sacrificial return. Not to mention the weak spot at A7. In a nutshell, it's just about accumulating more ammunition as a habit. In the game, Don Colt cornered Molly, and the Grandmaster was ready to sign his own death warrant. If Nelson had spotted Godfather B1, it would have been over. The GM was one step away from throwing in the towel. But sometimes your enemy becomes the slave of their own mind and pulls the trigger for you. Even if Godfather B1 didn't offer a clean escape from the mating net, disconnecting the twin duo and self-pinning the brick in the heat of the hunt is like dislocating your shoulder to protect your hairdo. The Syndicate's next idea to erase some low-life mobs of the rival family is like dipping your head in neon paint in a gunfight. First, it was a similar tactical pattern Nelson got trapped in during his previous game, but more importantly, it was a strategic blunder. He just gave up control of the C Street, the very same one his godfather was sitting on. If even strong players miss the moment when the streets are about to open, you'll want to see why sacrificing the Queen can become the only way to save the Godfather.